Hey, this is Gordon Sparks. This is Maritime Inc. My name is Gordon Sparks, and I'm from Papineau First Nation in Bathurst, New Brunswick originally. My first tattoo, I was 8 years old. I was sitting at home, and drew all the time. I was drawing all the time, and then seeing a few friends that had a soy needle and some thread on it and some Indiana ink. So I went and got that and put a tattoo on my leg, and I just hand poked it in, and I put fucked, F-U-C-T. Even spelled right. And I was only about 8 at the time. And then I started tattooing other friends from there. And I became that kid in the neighborhood that you're told not to go to, which was doing all the wrong things. And but I just loved doing it. And then from that, it branched off into my sisters that were basically going out with some dudes that were just got out the pen, and they taught me how to make a homemade machine. And then I made a homemade machine. Then I started tattooing potatoes and grapefruits. And then from that, I basically got a real interest in it. And then instead of I wanted to get myself my hands on the equipment, so I was around 16 at that time. And then I heard that the local dealer in town was selling his tattoo gear, so I sold my gas powered remote control, went and got that, got the money from it. Dad gave me a drive down. You're sitting down there, and you go up, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, you got your gear?" And he's, "What do you want?" I was like, "No, I want your tattoo gear. I heard you selling it." And he goes, "Yeah, sure." So then I bought the tattoo gear from him, continued tattooing. Then I started tattooing friends and my brother. My brother was a big one. He and I would tattoo all the time. And then I worked with Buddy that I bought the stuff from. Eventually, I couldn't shade at all, but he could shade, but couldn't line. So I would line tattoos, and then he would shade them. So it was two people doing one tattoo, and we'd be going like the punk rock shows, and we'd be going to in the basements of people's houses or my house, like just all the wrong things that you shouldn't be doing, right? But back then, well, it was 20 years ago, we just thought it was fun to do. And then it just evolved. And then I ended up going to art school for a bit. And then in between that, I ended up coming back here, and then that's when I got my art career going. Open your eyes until you hear 3 sounds. Soon as I knew I was able to draw in flesh, it piqued my curiosity instantly, and I just wanted to do it. And it had nothing to do with anything else but just wanting to draw in flesh, because I was drawing 24/7. I was able to draw before I could speak. And I remember laying down on the middle of the floor as Dad watched hockey games, and I would be drawing every single picture in the Ninja Turtle book, in a coloring book. Instead of coloring it, I'll draw every single page. And I wouldn't speak, but then I'll get up and go show Dad, and Dad will look at it, and he'd be like, "It looks like you're erasing too much." And then I'll go back and draw it. Then I started playing with pastels, oil pastels, started drawing portraits. My first portrait that I ever drew was O.J. Simpson, because he was on the TV all the time. He was and I drew him on Time Cover magazine. I drew that one. And I started using oil pastels and drew that up. And then once I started then tattooing, I wanted to be able to do that on flesh instead. And then it just kind of picked up, and I kept going and going and going and going. I had my tattoo machine, which I was working out Alfredo Weinstein and Ho, but I was grabbing the pig meat, when you're doing prep work, you have the pork meat, right? So then take the pork and you chop it up, and then you take the skin off. Instead of throwing it in the biohazard bin, I would put it in a bag and bring it home, put it in the freezer, take it out and tattoo it. But my machine kept falling apart. So how am I going to put this machine together? And so I ended up rolling up to Paul Time's shop on Gottingen Street back in the day, called The Fall. And I walked in and I asked him, "Can you show me how to take this machine and put it back together?" And he told me, "Come back the next day." So I went back the next day. He wasn't there. There was a note on the door saying, "Come back the next day." So then I come back the next day. And then I went in, he seen me, looked at the machine, they looked at me, and he said, "I've been waiting for someone to say something like that forever, for at least 10 years, because he didn't want someone coming in just asking for an apprenticeship. He wanted someone to actually know the machine itself." So my apprenticeship started off by understanding the machine, the coil machine at the time. Now we use rotaries, but the coil machine and how to take it apart, set it up, how to make needles. Now everything's disposable. So you buy your pre-made needles. Back in my day, I was making needles, sterilizing the tubes, and putting everything together. So that was a big part of learning, and then learning how the machine worked, and then also sterilizing everything, and then getting everything ready, and then actually start tattooing people within 6-7 months down the road. And most of what I did was sit over his shoulder and watch him. And then I got myself a friend. I told him, I said, I'll tattoo anything on you. You can't say anything, it'll be free. But I want to tattoo what I want to tattoo so I can practice. So I'll get him in the shop almost every day and then sit down, start working on him. And then when I didn't know something, I'll run over, go talk to Paul, ask him about it. And then I'll go back and try it right away. Like I say, the industry has changed so much just with the needles back then compared to now. Like back then we're using tight liners. So basically like a 3-liner, 5-liner, 9-liner, 7-liners. Biggest needle you would have had would have been an 8-round shader. It was, woo, that was huge. Now you got needles that are called magnums or megs, and you get up to 23 megs, which is needles stacked on top of each other. You have a needle here and then needles on top, and they kind of weave them. I used to make those. We used to take razor blades and then weave it. So you had to solder everything together individually and then weave a razor blade through, solder that, and then put that onto your needle bar, solder that, take that, put it into your ultrasonic, or first actually you're supposed to clean it with baking soda, neutralize the flux, take that, put it into your ultrasonic, clean that, then you take it, put it in a package it, then put it into a sterilizer. And then that was all done before your day even started. So then so it'll be a couple hours before you even start your day of work. Then at the end of the day, you either make more needles and prepare for the day after, or next, vice versa. So it was a big process. I noticed a big difference in the culture change itself just over from the time I first started to where it's at. Like how the shops used to be from pick 'em, stick 'em days. You come in, get a piece on the wall. You know, the stigma was that you're either a sailor or you're trailer trash or you're some kind of biker or some kind of gang member or any kind of derogatory kind of remark towards you put on that side, automatically put aside. It was like as if because you colored your skin, you're an outcast instantly. And it was odd to have a tattoo back then. And especially having a facial tattoo was even more odd and out of place. And even to go get jobs, I would go get a job and then call on the phone. Reach all the credentials. I did agriculture, I built houses, I did all these other things when I was on the res. I got good qualifications. Call up, yeah, sounds good, let's meet. As soon as I meet up with them, no, you're not hiring you because we work for high-class people and we can't have you here. And that's what happened to me when I first got here. And then it has definitely changed to the point where now you're odd not to have a tattoo.
I grew up thinking tattoos were just awful and I was never going to get one, and I thought they were just stupid. And then I met a guy who had a tattoo and it was very important to him, so he told me this story about it and I was like, okay, I kind of see that's all right. And then we had our first son and for his 30th birthday I said, okay, I will get a tattoo. Going in for that tattoo was a pretty interesting experience. Our son was really little and we didn't have a babysitter, and I'm very overprotective, so there was no way I was leaving my little tiny baby at home. So we called the tattoo parlor and I said, can I bring him with us? And they were like, oh, kids, tattoos. He's like, he's 3 months old. He's not even gonna know he's there. So they said, okay. So Chris went first, and he was going to show me how it was done since he had a tattoo already, and I was super nervous. So I had the baby in the snuggly and I was watching him, and he's just sitting there calm as anything, no problem at all. And I'm like, doesn't that hurt? And he's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, okay. So I watched him get his and I'm thinking, I can do this. This is not so bad. And I lay down and she's like, okay, are you ready? And I'm like, yep. And it started up and I went, oh! it hurt a bit more than I thought. And she's like, are you sure you want to do this? And I said, yes, he's got his now. I've got to have mine. It's only fair. It's like, you can't move your foot. I was like, all right. And every other part of me moved, but my foot stayed still. See, then we had kid number 2. And if you have a tattoo for kid number 1, you kind of have to have a tattoo for kid number 2. So we designed that up, and then I got tattoo number 2. So I have a third tattoo. I don't have 3 children, so that's the first thing. And it took me 2 years to plan that one out. But it's something that I always said to my kids. It's not my kids' names, But ever since they were really little, I used to say to them, "How much does mommy love you?" And I would always tell them, "I know, I love you more than all the stars in the sky." So when my daughter was super little and she could barely talk, I'd say, "How much does mommy love you?" And she'd say, "All stars in Thai," which was her best impression of all, more than all the stars in the sky. So even now, like, it's several years later, I'll still say it for bedtimes. And then I've got that on my other foot with a bunch of little stars just around it. Nothing too big and crazy because I'm kind of, low-key tattoo. But it's cute and it's fun, and they get a kick out of seeing it. So, and I'll have it forever. I never wanted any tattoos, and now I have 3 and counting. So I guess it opens your eyes to the fact that it's not what you thought it was. Like, I always thought it was kind of this subculture, sort of not cool, like not a positive thing. And I'm not sure if that's from being taught that or if that's just what society taught us, but it's changing so much now, and I love it. So now I get a bit more of appreciation for the art behind it.
I'll get up and I'll start carving for about 3 to 4 hours, and then I come to work 12 to 6, and then I'll go home, and then I'll carve all night. My tattoos started off as being a very angry individual that was a cutter that was relieving the eternal burning that you have inside yourself when you've been either emotionally hurt, someone's, you were dealing with some emotions that are inside, and then I'll cut myself and then relieve that. And then from that, it went to tattooing and piercings. And piercings uh, started coming from when you take a needle, you poke it through, and then put another piece of, and you focus all your negative energy on that, whatever you're going through, and your physical body, and to get rid of that emotional sickness. So then the piercing will be done, and then I'll have to plug it. And my tattoos are the same symbol, so my tattoos would be a form of healing. So when I was going through that emotional sickness, I would tattoo myself to relieve the emotional sickness so I can feel physical pain, so that emotional pain won't be there anymore for as long as I'm tattooing myself. As soon as I stop tattooing, the emotional pain comes back, but at least I had some relief. I found my roots through the art of sculpture with my mask. And then over the last 5 years, my whole bodysuit's been changing, which I have up on my wall over there. And it's a part of a philosophy of life story, which is part of the Mi'kmaq creation story, which represents the 7 districts of Mi'kma'ki. So the 7 arrows in the front that represent the 7 women, which are life givers, and then 7 arrows in the back, which represent the 7 indigenous speaking men from the 7 districts, represents life protectors. And then the birch tree itself, the white birch tree, carries a chaga mushroom, and that chaga mushroom is a sacred medicine that you use and you can drink it. The birch tree outlines the vascular system of my human body, and then the feet run into trunks which keep me grounded to the land, and then my hands as well. And then the negatives, the little branches that run off of it, represent the nervous system of the human body. But the reaction that I get from my face would be, it's kind of like a deer in the headlights sometimes. Some people look at you and they can't believe what they're looking at. Then you have other people that are kind of turn their face, or the piercing too, it does a lot because they'll hold their nose. You can tell the difference when someone's looking at me because they're looking at me because of my tattoo, or if they're looking at me because of the nose ring. I'll be going into Tim Hortons parking lot, and as I'm driving in, someone will look, and it's really funny because they'll try to look without looking. They'll catch me, and I'll notice, and then they'll bump their friend, all right, and then their friend will randomly try to turn around and try to take a look, without thinking that I noticed, and then I'll just wave, like, I see you looking at me. I know you're looking. If you want to look, come take a look, right? And it's pretty much the biggest one. It's then with my facial tattoos, it's more of a response to, it looks natural. It doesn't look out of place. It suits your face. And then once we engage in conversation, that's the best part about it. So I'll have someone look at me funny and judge a book by its cover right away. But then once we engage in a conversation, then their perspective changes automatically from the way that I'm articulating my words, how our conversation is going, the knowledge that I have, and then they start to see beyond the tattoo itself, and then it becomes more of a, like you're wearing a shirt. It becomes very normal to them, and then they can't see me without it. And then they don't, eventually, they don't see it at all, which is, and the best thing about my facial tattoo is that it kept me out of trouble. My dad taught me, he goes, when you have your face tattooed, you're going to be marked. So you can't, you go rob somebody, you're the only one in town that has a facial tattoo, right? You go bust in someone's house, you get seen, you're the only one with a face tattoo. They're going to pick you out, no problem, right? They even use it for identification. So it actually kept me out of trouble more so than putting me into trouble. Kept my head straight, was able to continue doing my tattoo career. And when I tattooed my face, it was a marriage to tattooing itself. So when I tattooed myself, I thought about it for a long time and really considered it and drew it on my face. It started off with tribal markings first. It was supposed to be like a cage, and then it kind of evolved into where I'm at now, which is part of the Mi'kmaq creation story and be part of the birch tree. But to stay on the topic was when I first started, when I married it, it was the same as you put a ring on someone's finger. It was me marrying my artwork, going, no matter what I do in my lifetime, I'm going to be a tattoo artist and I'm not going to run away from it. I'm going to do it consistently and I'm going to make it work no matter what. And I'm going to learn what I have to learn in order to continue doing what I'm doing, and I love it that much. So I tattooed my face to commit myself to tattooing itself, the art of tattooing. And then I continued doing it, and it kept me in the game, and I'm still in the game because of that. And I would never ever turn that page backwards. I would always go forward with it.
When I got my first tattoo, I was in a rough place, and it says I refuse to sink around the tattoo, and there was just a lot of things going on in my life that I just didn't want to sink me, so that's how I decided to get the first one. I think I have 8 in total now, just really small ones. My friend Ashley does my tattoos, and I get some simple ones and then some really intricate ones. So this tattoo here is Cape Split inside a book, and Ashley and I hiked Cape Split almost every other weekend, I think last summer, and the summer before that. It's just one of my favorite places to go. It's so peaceful and the view is beautiful, so I decided to put it inside a book. I also really enjoy reading, so that's where I got the putting it inside the book idea. The cat paw tattoo was for my cat, and I got it soon after getting him, and he's very dear to my heart. I just love him so much, so that's just to remember him by, I guess. And then this one here, the heartbeat with the mountains and the waves. I spent a lot of time in Alberta, so that's where the mountains come in. I lived in Banff for a year, and the waves are for home, Nova Scotia, and then they kind of shaped me, so that's why I have the heartbeat. And then I have a few other ones. I have a Harry Potter spell on my spine, because I am obsessed with Harry Potter. And I have the coordinates for an island that I went away to work at for 6 months in a third world country. And then on my hip is my favorite one. It's probably about this big, and it's a compass rose mandala. And I love to travel, so I got the compass rose mandala for that. And then I have a cross behind my ear. I grew up a Christian. I would like to get a foot tattoo, but I'm a little nervous that it won't heal properly, because with my job, I'm putting shoes on and taking shoes off and putting shoes on and stuff, so it might not heal very well, so I'm a little skeptical to get one there. I would love to get a pair of tulips for my mother. My mother wishes I would stop getting them. And after she found out about the first tattoo, she was like, why would you go and do that? But, I mean, I'm an adult, so.
I'm like, don't worry, we'll walk you through it. This is what we're gonna do.
That's what we did.
As I spend all my time at home, I don't go out anymore. I used to play pool and go mingle at the clubs and whatever, more at pool halls than anything. And when I got away from all that and just started concentrating on my artwork and staying home all the time, wasn't socializing. There was a period of my career where I was just home and I wasn't tattooing, right? I just walked away from it for a bit. That's why, like I said, when I tattooed my face, it kept me engaged I couldn't walk away from it. Even when I tried to walk away from it, went and built houses and did all this stuff, it just come right back anyway. And I was losing that connection with people. And now when I work in here and have the connection with people, it's a constant every day. And it's really interesting because sometimes I'll be talking to a client and Mel will be like, "So how long you guys been friends?" I'm like, "I just met them." It's really fun. It's entertaining. People are all different, and it's beautiful. And it's the same as their skin. Everybody's skin is usually different too. So each time I approach a tattoo and approach a new person, it's always different. It's never the same. Even the skin type is usually different. And that's what keeps me interested a lot. It's you're constantly progressing and you're constantly learning. It's not something that you just do, and then it becomes a repetition and you don't learn anything else. That's all you need to know, and for the rest of your career, this is what you're going. It's constantly growing. The everything from the people to the style of work to the skin type, it's never the same. Like there's close, but and that's what draws me to it the most. Culture has changed in a way of the art itself, where people are starting to realize that it's more of an art form, right? It's becoming, instead of just a tattoo itself, it's you're tattooing the image into someone's head. You're tattooing a memory. They have a super superb design that's being done and designed for that particular person now, not just to pick off the wall. There's a story from the person that does it, the story from the person creating it, putting it onto the skin itself, and then going from there and then executing it properly and professionally. Best part about it is when someone starts crying after they get the tattoo and they love it that much, where you can see they're crying from joy. Like actually the lady we tattooed today, you could see it in her eyes after she's seen her puppy on her arm that passed away 12 years, after 12 years living with her. My artwork as a whole, it's understanding that artwork is bigger than just me, that it's the term between artsy fartsy I never understood. So it's like a white picket fence. Everybody has a white picket fence. But what makes your white picket fence different than everybody else's? So once I figured that out, I realized that my artwork is now a way to record the history, keep a culture alive for all people to see. Tattooing to me is a spiritual thing. It's not just a decoration, it's a protecting. So when I tattooed myself, I was tattooing myself to heal myself spiritually, emotionally, physically. And that's how I'm able to continue going on each day, is when I tattoo myself and I'm able to walk out. And when you look at indigenous cultures on how they looked at tattooing, each tattoo was for a specific time and period in their life. If you're going to reach a so-called manhood or certain particular from being a kid to teenager, there was a certain ritual that went along with that. Then it goes into being an adult. Then there's another one that go with it. So as my life progressed and as I was learning and gathering knowledge and wisdom as I was growing up, each tattoo has a symbol of that. Now it's come down to the point where it's still a healing process, and it's healing me from being a very mad individual which was still a spiritual person, but now it's more of still a healing process spiritually, mentally, and physically, and a consistently, and will always be that.